Hello, my name is Grant Hickman. I'm the product manager for our security policies team. And I wanted to take a few minutes today to share some plans that we have for improvements to our merge request approval policies, and specifically to the option to set license approval requirements in your merge request approval policy. What we've seen from customer feedback is that it can be a bit challenging at scale to configure license approval policies to be able to manage exceptions across many different projects. We have, for example, one customer who um, wanted to be able to set an exception across thousands of projects, and they found that it was difficult as anytime that a license compliance exception came up, the only way to manage this was to be able to approve each MR individually in each project. Um, there isn't today a way to ensure that this is accepted and understood across all of your projects, and that it's understood within the context of a policy. So what we'll be looking into in this epic is a way to set these exceptions globally within the policy so that across all of your projects, exceptions for a given package or a combination of package type, and version is understood and essentially excluded or ignored by the policy rules. You might imagine an example here. Let's say that you work on the legal or compliance team at a business, and across 2,000 projects, let's say that you discover a requirement or request that involves introducing FFmpeg into your software. This is a popular tool that's used to record, convert, and stream audio and video, and it's licensed under LGPL or GPL depending on how it's configured. The GPL version in particular can impose restrictions that many companies avoid due to the obligation to open source derivative works. So this is something that by policy, your business may not have appetite for risk. But let's say with FFmpeg, the capabilities that you must offer or maybe you want to introduce within some internal tool, you've deemed that the risk is worth the reward, that your company is willing to tolerate that risk, and therefore you want to set an exception to the general rule. You want the policy to continue to work standard by the standard rules defined in the policy, but for a specific package, you want to allow for an exception. One customer also noted how they wanted to be able to pre-approve exceptions for packages across their instance, across multiple projects. So yeah, this was another use case, another similar case. Wanted to be able to have that that rule instantiated in policy before they enable the policy, so that it's already inherent in the policy. They don't have to go through and set approvals per exception. Another customer used ActiveMQ from Apache as a part in a part of their system, and they had different projects that were microservices that they wanted to make use of that component again. So as each microservice made updates and started to pull in that dependency, it would be detected that they're using this package, and then it would again require approvals by a policy. So even though originally an exception was provided for that particular package in one project, it affects other downstream projects that make use of it, requiring more and more approvals, which is difficult to manage at scale. So with having a policy here that has a predefined set of exceptions, this can scale to be leveraged across multiple projects. And we have another specific feedback item from a customer regarding actually defining exceptions based on the component and package version. So just being able to have specifically the package type, the package name, and the package version in that rule. And we'll talk about some of that in our plans today as I continue. So as you can see, managing license approval policies at scale, today it can essentially result in a lot of additional approvals from MRs whenever these license compliance issues are detected. Having more capabilities within our rules here will help to to make this simpler to manage, a lot fewer clicks, a lot less overhead, a lot less involvement in each of the individual MRs, making it a lot smoother for our legal and compliance teams to be able to manage. So with that, let's take a look at the designs that Camellia helped put together. And Camellia, feel free to weigh in and share any additional context that you have, but I'll give a quick overview today. So first off, I've defined the workflow here in the proposal and design section. The first step is to be able to create your license approval policy. So that will happen here. And then the next step is to be able to choose between essentially if you want the policy to be defined as an allow list or a deny list. So what you'll see in the design is there is a choice to select between those options in a drop down. And you'll see we have denied or allowed. So that selection essentially toggles if this is something that we're going to start to block licenses because they're not on the allow list, or we'll block licenses because they are on the deny list. So that's step one. You have allow and deny. So kind of broke that down in step two, is just like showing these two different drop down options. And then what you'll also notice is that as you select this, it will clarify in the UI that based on the policy rule, you'll be disallowing the license that if it's detected, if it's new and not allowed according to the allow list, then an approval will be required based on the action. So as you select allow, we will update the UI to show that this will be an allow list and that you can manage that allow list with this edit action. And you'll see the same with the deny list. So if you we detect a new license that's denied based on the deny list, then the user can also specify what is on that deny list. So then moving on to step three, as the user goes in to edit that license list, the allow or deny list will pop up in a modal, and this will allow you to specify the licenses that you want to allow or deny, and we'll have some copy here that makes it clear exactly what you're doing. So for example, this list will determine that the following licenses are denied. You'll be able to go down here and drop down and add in any of the licenses that are, in this case, denied. And then that will be your default policy. But if there are exceptions to a specific, for a specific case, for example, we want to say allow an exception for this AMD for a given package, that's when you would be able to go in and add an exception in the dropdown. So let's take a look at that. That's the next step. Here is being able to see you have an exception, you have AMD, you have BSD added as denied. So we'll block MRs if we detect these licenses, except in the case of these two packages. And showing a little more detail on how you define those exceptions, we'll look at it from the viewpoint of an allow list. So in this case, if the user has chosen to configure the policy as an allow list, when they pop up in the modal, they'll see the option to add licenses that are by default in the policy allowed, and then they could go in and add exceptions. So if you drop this down, you want to specify an exception. The approach that we have chosen to use is actually to have an open text area to input the licenses that you, or sorry, the packages you want to exclude in an open text area using curl. The reason for this choice is that it's very specific. You can include the package type, the package name, and the package version. And we've seen that this is also something that is commonly used and understood in the industry. It's something that will help us to scale in the future, to be able to add more capabilities in the future without creating our own separate syntax. So I think this is going to be a really smooth way to manage it. It'll be easier to kind of copy paste and drop in any information that you want. So this will be, I think, a pretty quick way to manage it. What we also intend is that if you want to specify a package and package name, you can do that singularly, and that will be the case for all versions of uh, that match package type and package name. But if you have a specific version or set of versions that you want to exclude, then you can specify those one by one. And in the future, when Perl supports version ranges, we can explore adding support for that as well. So yeah, well, once you have that exception defined, you can save the allow list, and then from that point, we'll be able to take that rule set and manage it globally across all projects. And then the next design here, we have just listed the sample YAML format that we're expecting. So this will be the option to set allowed or denied licenses. We'll have the name, which can be the license name or the SPDX identifier. And then if there are exception packages for each license under that, you'd have packages excluding and then the Perl. So if it's an allowed license, this could have, these licenses are by default allowed, except in the case of this NPM package. And then in this case, by default, licenses on the list will be denied, except for this NPM package. So yeah, if you have more questions, feel free to take a look through the design and reach out to myself or Camellia. We have a few more designs listed there. And one thing I did want to note is with the effort that we're putting into this design, it's going to help us move into the future as well as we explore license severities as a filter. So currently our software composition analysis team is working on adding support in license scanning to be able to detect the licenses and apply a severity to that. So if we see a copyleft license or something that is known in the industry to be of higher risk, that they'll supply that data as a result of the scan. And then in the future, we hope to make use of that as well. So we could block licenses that are deemed higher critical risk, but still be able to make use of the exceptions per package. So that's going to continue to make it even smoother and simpler to manage at scale. Don't get too hung up on the designs here. This was just discussion, but I wanted to kind of highlight this aspect. And we'll work on that as a follow-up separate to the plans that we have in the Epic here. So yeah, if you do have questions for us, feel free to reach out in the Epic here or in the designs in this issue. And yeah, appreciate your time reviewing the video today.